Started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us on this today. Siobhan, it's quite gray and rainy here in Louisville. So, as you know, I'm always grateful and thankful for anybody who gets on and joins us because, it's not the greatest motivator to get on at 9 o'clock in the morning to a session. But thank you all so much for joining us. Today's session is Foundations in Self-Awareness of Cognitive Development, again, with our expert and fearless facilitator, Ms. Siobhan Dotson. We are, as always, in for a treat today. And as in true Youth Success Network fashion, if you could please put your, name and your organization that you are representing in the chat, please, so that we can know who is in the room. Put your name in the organization that you're representing in the chat, please, so that we can know who is in the room and for attendance purposes. Yeah, so thank you all so much. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving break, had some time to wind down a little bit. I know the holidays can be a crazy time in our sites and our centers because of all the holiday programming for the kids. And then also when the kids are not in school, there seems to be some type of reserved energy that they saved for us in the site. So super thankful that you all are here and hope everybody had a good restful holiday season. But without further ado, again, one more time, please, if you are in and you can hear me, put your name and the organization that you're representing in the chat, and I will go ahead and hand it over to our master facilitator, Ms. Siobhan Dotson. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. For a minute there, I forgot what day of the week it was. My week has been already thrown off. But guess what, Antonio? It is super rainy and super gloomy here over in the DC area as well. Like so much so that I have been thrown off. And I'm like, is it really like 9 o'clock in the morning? Or is it 9 o'clock at night? Because am I getting up or am I going back to sleep? Because it has been very, very dark over here. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm hoping the sun will come out for 2 seconds. But anyways, good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let's see who we have here in the chat. Welcome, Zion. Hello from Central Louisville Coalition. Good morning, Mariah from Backside Learning Center. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dinah. Is it Dinah or is it Dina?
It's Dina, and good morning.
Good morning. I don't want to mess anybody's name up. Good morning, Dina from Backside Learning Center. Good morning, Michaela. Is it Michaela?
Yes, Michaela.
Michaela. Oh, see, I want to get it right. Michaela. Okay. Good morning, Michaela from Backside Learning Center as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Siobhan Dotson. I'm going to be your facilitator here. And we're going to talk about foundations of self-awareness of cognitive development. So we're going to do a lot of talking about brain development today. And I'm really, really excited. As always, I always like to just say you all are experts in your field, right? So as we're talking about brain development and things like that, I really want you to feel free to chime in and share any insight, any information, any anecdotes that you can share related to this work, because it is going to help someone. As much as I am here to share something with you, I want you to share something with me as well. I'm here to learn from you. Also, because I am not the end all be all of this work. So feel free to chime in at any time. This is meant to be informal, right? This training it's for you. So you get to make it whatever it is that you need. I also like to tell people, take what you need and leave the rest. If anything in this workshop is like, you're like, I don't agree with that, or I'm not going to do that, then don't do it. Right? So definitely take what it is that you need, leave the rest, put it in your toolbox for another time. Hello, good morning, Dr. Georgia from 2 Not 1 Fatherhood and Families. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so we're going to start it off. Before I get into my slides, I am telling y'all right now, I am having some trouble I feel like just waking up this morning. I think it's because it's the rain. It's super gloomy here. So on a scale of what between 1 and 5, right? 1, 3, or 5, I would totally give myself somewhere between like a 3 and a 5 this morning. Might be a 3.5 to a 4. I don't know. I feel like I need to wake up still. And my son got up and was just not on the best side of the bed. So I'm feeling real like 3.5, maybe 4-ish this morning. How are you all feeling? So go ahead and let me know. Type into the chat. Choose a number between 1 and 5, 3 being our midpoint, 1 being like, I'm not really feeling it this morning. 5 being like, I woke up in an amazing mood this morning. Let me know, how are you feeling this morning? On a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling this morning? Go ahead and type that into the chat. Like I said, I'm definitely like a 3.5, maybe a 4. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. All right, Mariah says a 4. Zion is a 4. Kenya, hey Kenya. Kenya says a 3. I am feeling it, but you have the flu, Kenya, and you still on the listen. God bless you for still being here with the flu. I appreciate that. Mikaela, 3. Antonio, first of all, y'all, I want this to go down in the history of the world. This is the first time Antonio has not been a 5. Usually Antonio is like a 5+. Antonio said today, maybe like a 4.25. Antonio, this is the first time you have said that you are something other than a 5. So look at that.
Yeah, given the weather and stuff, and then
Yeah.
work to do, it's about 4.25. I'm almost there, but just not almost the 5. So, like, if this would have started at 10, like the normal,
You would have been a
I would
5.
have been a 5. Yeah, so we're an hour early.
You know what, Antonio? I'm there with you. You're right. If this would have started at 10 for me, I probably would have been somewhere closer to a 5. I respect that. I honor that. Thank you all for letting me know how you feel this morning. Your 4s, some 3s. No one said that they're a 1, which even if you are feeling like a 1, there's space for you here. I honor that. And I totally understand. Now, you all told me how you feel. Like, I feel like that's the professional answer when you're just like, I'm like a 4, I'm like a 3. So now I want you to be honest with me and tell me, how are you really feeling? Right? We're talking about social emotional. So take the work hat off for a moment. Now I want you to truly be honest. Think about you personally. How are you personally feeling today? Are you a 1? Are you a 3? Are you feeling a 5? Are you somewhere in between? Go ahead and tell me, like, personally, how are you feeling this morning? I see some answers coming in. Okay. I think personally, you know what? I would say maybe personally, I'm probably like a 3. I would say personally, I'm probably like a 3 right now because I got a lot going on, but it ain't horrible. It's not bad. Now, if I would have said this to y'all 2 months ago, I would have definitely been like a 1.5. All right. So I see some answers coming in here, and thank you all so much for your vulnerability. Thank you so much for your transparency. I see some numbers. Okay. And the reason I wanted to make that distinguishment, right? Like really distinguish between our first, like, hey, how are you feeling today? Between like a real, how you feeling today? Because we do a lot of masking, right? We do a lot of masking when we show up for work and we're just like, whoo, good morning. I'm happy to be here. When internally, we probably are like, child, my life is falling apart. And if I didn't learn anything else throughout this pandemic, I have learned that we really have to give people grace and check on people as human beings, because folks be going through a whole bunch and we would never know because we never really take the time to check in on people personally. So I appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart just for being here and for showing up today. No matter what you might in your life. And look, Kenya got the flu, and Kenya, still showed up. And respect to you, Kenya, because I can tell you right now, with the flu, I wouldn't even turn my computer on. Right. And that's not even the flu. If I got a bad cold, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it, player. So I appreciate you for, for being here and showing up. And if at any time you need to hop off, or anybody really needs to hop off because, things happen, I want you to do that. And I want you to take care of yourself. It's really, really important that we take care of ourselves. I don't know if anyone is a Deion Cole fan. He's a comedian. He's hilarious to me, like extremely hilarious. He has a new comedy special on Netflix, and I watched it over the weekend. I was looking for a laugh, and I'm, cracking up laughing. I mean, I'm cracking up so hard, y'all. I'm trying not to wake my son up, who I had just put to sleep. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is not because of what he said in the comedy special. I mean, this man spent probably a good 90 minutes telling some of the funniest jokes I have heard in a while. He was just a hee-heeing and a ha-ha and all the things. When he was done with his comedy special, everybody's clapping it up at the end. He had a really special, vulnerable message. And he shared with the audience, he was just like, listen, when comedians get up on this stage, like for real, give them love. Because he said that he had lost his mother a year ago on the day that he was filming his comedy special. And, he was just saying life just hasn't been the same. And he said, this is my job. So I'm going to get up here. I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to, make it seem like everything is great. He said, but on the inside, I am not okay. My life is falling apart and no one would ever know. So, thank you for the love. And it really hit me because I have a friend who lost her mom a few years ago, and just life just hasn't been the same for her. And I know so many people who are going through so many things, and they say time heals all wounds. And I don't think that's true. I think time makes us learn how to manage those wounds. I don't think they ever heal and go away. So to anyone out there who is feeling a type of way today, you are struggling, maybe the holidays are not the best time of year for you, maybe you just got a lot going on personally, I just want to extend some love and some grace to you and some positive energy, and just some kindness, because again, we all be going through things. So I just appreciate you all for showing up and for being here, and we're going to get into it today. And thank you for allowing me to go off into that little anecdote, but I wanted to just create space to say that. All right, so just a little bit about this training. So this training is brought to you by the Forum, or the Forum for Youth Investment. And inside the Forum, they have what they call the Weichert Center. And the Weichert Center is really where they do a lot of development of the trainings based on the research that the Forum for Youth Investment has done. They also do a lot on the policy side, as you can see here, really trying to talk about improving policies, strengthening our programs and our practices. And I'll share a link to their website at the end of this if you want to read a little bit more about the Forum for Youth Investment. So the Forum for Youth Investment created this SEL methods training, and today, the foundations learning that we're going to be talking about is really going to be highlighting on problem solving and initiative. So those are the two components that this foundations is going to be highlighting. Here's our social emotional learning pyramid of program quality. Go ahead and type into the chat, yes or no. Have you ever seen this pyramid before? Are you familiar with this pyramid? Yes or no? Type that into the chat for me. This is our pyramid of program quality. So our traditional methods go with this pyramid over here. We create safe spaces. We talk about supportive environments, interactive environments, engaging environments, right? So that's our traditional pyramid of program quality. When we think about program quality, we know all of these elements need to be in place. If you all have done the PQA, the program quality assessment, then this is what that assessment tool is based off of, these specific areas here: safe space, supportive environment, interactive environment, engaging environment. Now, for social emotional learning, they took those same domains and said, let's go a little bit deeper. So when we think about safe space, if you've ever participated in the PQA, you know, a lot of the questions related to safe space are looking like, we look for physical safe space. You know, do you have any book bags or trash or anything on the floor? You know, do you know where the exits are? You know, we think about the physical safe space as well, but in the social emotional learning aspect of it, we want to think about how we're creating safe spaces. So we really want to dive a little bit deeper into what does that look like? You know, how do we work within our programs to create safe and supportive spaces for our young people? And for our domain of supportive environment, we look at how do we foster growth mindset, scaffold learning, emotion coaching, right? Like, how can I help teach some skills so that our young people are able to try to help manage their emotions a little bit better? Because we know emotion coaching is really about self-awareness, right? Like self-management and teaching skills. Then interactive environment, cultivating empathy, right? Promoting responsibility and leadership, fostering teamwork. So an example of cultivating empathy was, you know, what I just did at the beginning, to really ask you like, no, like for real, how are you doing? And to make space to say, even if it's not my situation, I can respect the fact that someone else might be in that situation, and I can make space for them and let them know I'm still here to support you. And in our engaging environment, we think about like, how do we support the plans and goals our youth set? How do we support our youth interests? And how can we continue to further the learning? So if you ever take the SEL PQA, so the social emotional learning program quality assessment tool, you're going to be seeing questions in these fields over here that go a little bit deeper than our traditional program quality assessment tool. All right, so this is the sequence for our social emotional learning methods. Before we get into any of the specific methods, we always start with the foundations. Now, when we talk about foundations, we're really going to talk about ourselves, which is why it's called self-awareness. So today we're going to be, you know, taking off your hat, your youth development professional hat a little bit. We're just going to really think about how this relates to us. Right? Because in order for me to think about how this might relate to someone else or what this might look like in them, it's really important that I look at myself and I have some self-awareness for how it might show up in me so that I can have a better understanding and also cultivate a little bit more empathy. So we are here, the cognitive development one, and then the next one after that, we'll talk about youth, supporting our youth through supported struggle, and then facilitating some problem solving. Now, this just means that this is a parallel process. Whatever is good for our young people is also good for us. All right. So while we're doing these things and teaching our young people, we also know that it's important for us to model these things and to continuously learn more about how these methods might show up in ourselves. Okay. So we're going to get into just a really quick, like, icebreaker type activity. I'm going to put you all into some breakout rooms. And I'm going to put you all in breakout rooms. And I love Zoom because now I can share my screen to the breakout room. And I'm going to ask you a question. So you all will have 2 minutes in your breakout room. And you all will be, I'll put a question up on the screen and you're just going to answer the question. So decide who wants to answer first and answer the question in your room. And then I'll bring you all back to our main room. And we're going to do 3 rounds of this, like, switching up in breakout rooms. Hopefully you're with a new person every time we do this. But even if you don't, it is absolutely okay. All right, so do me a favor and hit me with a thumbs up emoji if you are clear on what we're about to do. I want to make sure before we move on, everyone is okay. All right, perfect. Great. So I'm going to open up the rooms. You'll go in your room, and then I'm going to make sure that I share my screen to your breakout rooms. Hold on, let me see if I need to hit it now. No, okay, I'm going to share my screen to your breakout rooms, and then this is going to be your first question, just so that you can see. So what you're going to do is, what is something you enjoy learning about or learning to do? All right. had an opportunity to get to know each other and learn a little bit more about one another with this. So I would love to hear from two people. Describe one of your least favorite learning experiences. What made it hard? How did it make you feel? And how did it impact or affect your view of yourself as a learner? So I just need two people to go ahead and share one or two. I'm not mad if it's just one. Who'd like to share and answer this for me?
Kenzie, why are you laughing?
Yes, Lucas.
And I'm waiting for you to say what you gotta say, Antonio.
Okay, I guess that's volunteering me, like, yeah, so in my group, I talked about my experience when I was in high school and biology, and we were learning about photosynthesis, and you know, I failed that exam, and I didn't know like if there was all type of cycles that was involved in that process, and the way I felt was that it just wasn't for me. I was not going to be a botanist. I don't have a green thumb. Like, you know, learning about plants and that nature, that was not for me. And so from even now, just, I don't like yard work or any of those types of things. It's just not for me. And I think they had asked me like why I felt that way or what happened. And how I remember that. I said, I remember that because I studied for it and I still failed. And that's why I remember that. So, yeah.
Interesting, Antonio. Thank you for sharing. I can relate. There are some things that I studied hard for that still didn't pass. And to this day, do not hit me with an A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Math is not my thing. I will run from an algebra test any day. Thank you so much for sharing that, Antonio. Anyone else want to share? We'll take one more.
I can go. I went to like a conference recently and there were all these different sessions and, you know, they're all going on at the same time. So you kind of have to choose one that sounds interesting. And the one I chose just ended up being really disappointing because just the presenter was not very good. And so it felt like a waste of time. And by not very good, I mean that I didn't even know exactly what the presentation was about until like the end. So it was just unclear what we were really doing there. And it felt just like, well, there's 30 minutes of my time, just a big waste. So it's on a different, yeah, exactly. Facilitating is a skill. It's different. It's not so much about, you know, me struggling with something and then having a hard time with it, but it was not a positive learning experience because I didn't get much out of it.
No, thank you so much for sharing it, Mariah. That is valid right there. Like facilitation or teaching, right? If you're not in front of the right educator, the right presenter, the right facilitator, it can absolutely impact one's ability to learn something, right? It won't necessarily be the best learning experience. I know I have a daughter, my oldest is 18. And, you know, she had a professor once where she was just like, I hate this person because she was like, she talks too fast. And it was a math class. She's taking a college level math class. And she was just like, no, this person is talking too fast. They're not explaining everything. I'm so confused and I'm so lost. And it was just such a negative learning experience from her that she's just like, I don't know when I want to take math class again because, you know, that stuck with her. She was just like, the teacher wasn't good. So in her mind, she's just like, I'm scared every other teacher that I'm going to have, it's also not going to be good. And every learning experience is going to be like this. So thank you so much, Mariah, for sharing that. That is valid. Antonio typed into the chat, facilitating is a skill. And it is, it really is. Understanding how to work with adult learners and educating, it is a skill set. So thank you. And I think sometimes we have to remember that someone's inability to do that correctly will impact the learner's experience, right? So thank you all for sharing this. So I want you all to really keep this one in the back of your mind as we go through our presentation today about, how you felt when you may have encountered your least favorite learning experience and how that impacts you still to this day. All right. Oops. So here are our learning objectives today. I typically don't do it like this, but I'm feeling a little jazzy today. So let me see. I'm going to call on somebody. And I just want you to go ahead and read, and you can paraphrase if you want to. Read the first bullet point for our objective. Let's see. I'm not going to pick on Kenya because Kenya is not feeling well. Dina, are you in a space where you can talk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead and you can paraphrase these bullet points but go ahead and read the first one for me.
Okay, explain how the basic elements of initiative and problem solving fit together within an SEL framework of cognitive development.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dina. So a part of this is us just really talking about these basic elements of initiative and problem solving, because those are the elements we're going to focus on today. Mariah, are you able to read bullet point number 2 for me?
Yes, indeed. Participants will be able to identify their own strengths, needs, interests, and constraints related to learning and cognitive development.
Awesome. Thank you. And let's see. Davin. Is it Davin?
It's Devin. I can read it.
Devin. Okay. Thank you. Hello and welcome. Go ahead and
Good
read the third one for me.
It says understanding ways their background experiences, privilege, biases, and/or discrimination have affected their attitudes toward learning and their expectations about others' learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for that. So basically, we're going to be talking about these SEL and these SEL elements, initiative and problem solving. We want to make sure that we talk about identify our own strengths, our own needs, our own interests when we think about learning and cognitive development. We also want to talk about and understand ways in which our own backgrounds, our own experiences, biases, privilege, discrimination, or what have you, may impact and affect our attitudes towards our own learning. Here's our agenda for today. We did our welcome and setting. We're going to do an opening activity. Then we'll get into the central ideas, application, and implementation. Then we'll do a reflection and close it out. I'm going to make a note that we are set to be here until, I believe, 12 o'clock, 9, yes. But we're going to end around 11:30. I do want to let you all know I'm going to give you 30 minutes back. So we are going to end around 11:30-ish this morning. So you can look forward to that. Some housekeeping, just take care of yourself. I always encourage people to minimize your distractions throughout this. Engage, because this is for you. And also use our chat. Our chat box is going to be what we use as our parking lot. So any questions that might come up, you can feel free to put them in there. And I will make sure that I try my best to answer it. If there is something that you just want to ask me personally, you can always send me a private message and I will read it, but I won't read it out loud to everyone. And I won't say who it's from. Here are our group agreements here. Basically, we agree learning is social. We're doing this together. Learning is emotional, which means we bring all of our emotions to the work, and that is okay. Learning is cognitive. It takes our attention, our focus. We really want to fully engage our minds. And we know and recognize that so many things impact, how we see the world. It will impact our learning experiences, things like just who we are, our life, our experiences, bias, racism, geography, our cultural backgrounds, age, gender, all of those things, etc. It can impact how we receive this information, and that is okay. What I am going to do is we're going to take a second, and I want you all to tell me, what do you need in this space today to maximize your learning? So what additional group agreements do we need to add? Go ahead and click the link for me there. Click the link for me there. It's going to take you to Jamboard. And I want you to just, I'm going to share my screen here in a second. It says, oh, I don't know. Here we go. So here's our Jamboard. Go ahead and you can use, this is our sticky note here. There we go. And you can just type something here, blah, 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 and put it on the, hit save and it'll add it. So go ahead and take a minute. I'll put a minute on my timer. Tell me, what do you need today? You can say, did somebody provide example? Like, yep, breaks. You can say, you know, I need clarity. I need to be able to ask questions, whatever it is you need. 1 minute. Thirty more seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Perfect. All right. Let's see what you all have. If you're still writing stuff, feel free to take your time, still write it. All right. Someone says provide examples. Okay, love it. Someone says breaks. All right. And you all do me a favor. If some reason I forget, I do have breaks in here, but remind me and be like, sis, we need like a 5-minute break or something, so I can make sure I honor giving you all breaks. Someone says visual examples. Okay. Laughter. I love that. Yes, I love to laugh. Courage to share if you feel inclined to do so. Yes. Providing real world examples. Absolutely. And someone's put a smiley face. I love it. Okay, this is great. So while we are in our space today, do me a favor, everyone, if we will agree to this, and this is us as a collective, not just me as someone leading this, but this is all of us. We're all going to agree to create these things and bring this to the table. Go ahead and hit me with a thumbs up emoji. That's going to show me that we are all in agreement. You can do a thumbs up, a hand clap, a smiley face, but hit me with an emoji. Perfect. Let me know we are in agreement. Love it. I see some emojis coming through. Awesome. Yes. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We agree to these things here. All right. Let's get back to our presentation. And it starts me over every time. And we're going to get into it. So again, today we are talking about cognitive development and the brain. So this is going to be a lot of great information on the brain. And if you have any insights into, any parts of brain development, please feel free to share. I love talking about the brain and brain development. I am also going to turn my video off while I go through some of these so that you don't see me in the way. Okay. All right, here we are, cognitive development and the brain. So we're going to go over these different areas of the brain. The first part of the brain that we're going to talk about, it's the neocortex. This is our rational or thinking brain. All right. So this is also the front area of our brain. One thing to note about the brain grows from the back to the front. So here's the stem of the brain, right? And the brain grows, it starts growing down here and back here first. And then the last thing to develop is this front part of our brain we call the prefrontal cortex, right? And our neocortex, that's our thinking brain. So if we know that this area of the brain, it grows from the back to the front, is the last part to fully develop, it makes sense why when you meet a 6 or a 7-year-old, they don't have a lot of rational thinking because their brain isn't fully developed yet. That part definitely is not fully developed. So they may not be able to cognitively, you know what I'm saying, think through some really confusing or difficult or challenging instructions, or we're asking them to think about too many things. They're like, wait a minute, what? I don't know what you're talking about, because they haven't fully developed there. Go ahead and type into the chat if you know the answer. At what age is the brain fully developed? If you know the answer, go ahead and type into the chat.
26. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's around like, yep, it's around like 20, 25, 26-ish is when the brain is fully developed. I always like to say it's somewhere between like 24 to 26. Now, if we know that the brain is not fully developed until our mid-20s, how do you think that impacts how we approach our youth? How do you think it should impact how we approach our young people in programming? Anyone want to give some insight into that?
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we know that the brain doesn't fully develop until the mid-20s, how do you think that information should impact how we approach our young people in programming?
I think we should approach maybe with layers, maybe.
Yep.
So
With-
meaning like starting as like maybe a novice and then kind of working your way up, meeting them on their levels, but also explaining things to them in a way that they can understand, like not putting it as the youth are too young to understand this, or the youth are too young, or, you know, that's very commonly used. I don't think they're too young. I just think it's just the way that we speak to them in the way that where we meet their needs.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. So meeting them where they are. I love that. And maybe understanding what language they can digest and understand, instead of making things a little bit overly complicated, right? Kenya says with patience. Oh, yes. Mariah says important to approach young people with patience, nurturing, and loving guidance. Also holding them to high expectations because they are definitely very capable. All right, so if we know that our young people, you know, their brains don't develop until mid-20s, I always tell people, like, just keep that in the back of your mind when you're working with your young people. One of my biggest pet peeves, is when I hear people say, you know better. You know what? You ought to know better than to do this. Well, who's to say that someone actually taught them? That is one of my biggest pet peeves, especially when I hear people say that a lot to teenagers. And it's just like, you know better. I shouldn't have to keep repeating myself time and time again. Yeah, you are going to keep repeating yourself time and time again because they're 16. Their brain isn't even set up to think about 3 years from now. It's hard for them to think about tomorrow. Their brains are set in the how does this impact me right now in this moment type of thing. So I often say that to people. Yes, you are going to repeat yourself time and time and time and time and time again. And I think about some of the responsibilities and expectations we put on young people. And it kind of makes me sad sometimes because it's just like, wow, their brains aren't even fully developed, but yet We're telling them, hey, you should know what you want to do with the rest of your life by the time you're in your 20s. Like, what? Like, how can I expect you to know what you want to do for the rest of your life by the time you're in your 20s when your brain hasn't even fully developed the ability to think about long-term and the impacts of your decisions today in the long term? So that's just a little tidbit for me. Antonio says, use the zone of optimal development as a tool. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Like, what can you understand right now? So that's the neocortex. That's our rational or thinking brain. It's in the front, right? Like right this front area of the brain. It's the last thing to fully develop. Now, our limbic brain, right there in the middle, that's our emotional or our feeling brain. That's where all of our emotions develop. And our limbic system and our limbic brain, that really gets fully developed around, I want to say like 16. Like somewhere between like 14 and 16 is when that is fully developed, but also it's in the peak of its development. So it makes sense why middle schoolers and high schoolers are so emotional, right? Because all of the things, all of their systems now in the emotional part of their brain are starting to fire off on all cylinders. So I am feeling everything. I'm feeling everything, but because my rational thinking brain still isn't fully developed, I'm feeling a lot of things that I don't understand. Right? So just FYI, I'm feeling a lot, even though I don't understand it. And we can see this in a lot of toddlers. I have a 2-year-old, I have a toddler. I see his emotional side starting to develop because everything is a meltdown. So it's interesting to watch development in children from like their toddler phases and compare it to what I like to call like the middle school, high school phase. They look very similar emotionally. Everything is a meltdown, right? And then we have our reptilian brain. That is our instinctual brain. If our brain develops from the back to the front, we know our survival instinct kicks in more immediately. That's one of the first things to develop, because the first thing you have to do when you are born into this world is try to survive. That is developed, boom. Soon as you're born, your brain is saying, all right, you need to learn how to breathe. Breathing is, because it's different. Breathing on the outside of the womb, on the inside of the womb, it's different. So your brain immediately is like, all right, breathe. Okay, you need to learn how to eat, right? The way you ate in the womb is not how you eat outside the womb. Even for babies, we see babies go from sucking on bottles, then it's like, well, now you need to eat food, right? So that's your instinctual brain. That develops first. And because that develops first, that's the thing we hold on to, right? Fight, flight, or freeze is a very instinctual thing to do. That is, you go into survival mode, right? When you go into survival mode, that little neocortex part of your brain is out the door. It is gone. And I am a real survivor of being in survival mode for a really, 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 really long time. So I want you all to think too, a lot of the times when we encounter our young people, their behaviors are stemming from survival mode. Especially a lot of young people who have been exposed to a lot of trauma, right? They are always in survival mode, which means they're always on a defense, right? Because it's like, you could say good morning to them and they're like, you talking to me this morning, right? It's always something because they're always in survival mode. Their brain and their nervous system is telling them, you just got to survive the moment, survive their moment. And that's just where they are, right? That's how trauma can impact and affect the brain. So I just wanted to highlight these 3 areas, our reptilian, our limbic, and our neocortex, and go over just some time frames of when those things develop. Reptilian brain, right? That is the oldest part of the brain, develops, from when we were babies. We're just taught to survive. Your emotional brain, right? Your limbic brain, that fully develops around our teenage years. Our neocortex, our thinking brain fully develops much, much older, in our mid-20s. A lot of our cognitive abilities take place in a neocortex, right? So that's learning, remembering, paying attention, problem solving, thinking logically, ability to plan and prioritize. A lot of that comes from our neocortex, right? So just keep that in mind as we are thinking about how we learn and how our young people can learn as well. Just a quick tidbit, David P. Weichert. He's the guy who created the Weichert Center, and he's been doing this work for a really long time. He is gone on and deceased now, but he began as a psychologist, like a school psychologist back in 1957 out in Michigan. And he started in looking at development in young children, like so preschoolers. He started looking at them, and he was a part of this research to say, let's really think about preschoolers, called the Perry Preschool Project, and really look at how we can start figuring out what's going on in our young people underperforming in academic performance. So what he did was they did this research project, they looked at all of these elements, and at the end of the research, they determined that in order for us to talk about academic learning, we really need to look at things other than just academics. We need to look at social emotional. We need to look at the elements our young people around. We need to look at, are we even creating high quality programming? We need to look at so many other things before we can just be like, they need to study more, right? So he really started to lay the groundwork and say, we need to have all of these elements in place first. That's how we got the pyramid for program quality. We need to have all of these elements in place first in order to create an environment where our young people can maximize their learning. And from the Weichert Center, then, the Forum for Youth Investment was created as well. And this study that they did initially had 123 low-income children in this study. So that was their focus group, where they started out and they developed what was now known as the high scope curriculum. And that is what our methods and stuff are based on. So just a quick little tidbit about that. In creating this high scope curriculum, David P. Weichert also said, this is how we need to do this. We need to always be planning our work, be doing our work, and be reviewing our work. This is where we're starting to see, like, how can we always think about continuous improvement? How can we think about not only continuous improvement in programming, but we can add these elements into working with our young people. Let's plan out the curriculum. Let's plan out the lesson plan. Let's do it, but let's always go back and review it. So this was the element for thinking about how we can create successful youth: the plan, the do, the review. And we still see that in our continuous quality improvement plans today as well. Now, with that, they paired that with information from the Wallace Foundation. Let me move myself here to say, now, while we're talking about planning and doing and reviewing, we also want to make sure we bring in the SEL components, right? We want to talk about giving them some time to really reflect, giving them some time to really feel on this, thinking about what's important to them. So this is where we started to merge our SER, social emotional, with program quality. And we created, well, not we, because I didn't do it, but the Weichert Center created these curriculums to always add in these elements of feeling, of thinking, of doing, taking time to think about, how did this feel? So when we talk about reflection, right, we're going to do the work, but we also want to actively reflect on the work and think about, how do we feel about this? How is this, sitting in my system? Which is why during one of our opening questions, it was like, hey, how did you feel about that experience? Because we want to connect the emotion there. So how does this relate to problem solving? Well, when we think about problem solving, we do our plan, our do, and review as well. You want to first identify and describe whatever the problem is, but your planning part is, hey, I need to explore some strategies. So think about a time you ever encountered a problem. You probably have done plan, do, review time and time again, because as soon as you identify the problem, you start thinking about, all right, what do I need to do? How can I get myself through this problem? You start exploring some strategies. And then you start saying, all right, well, let me just do it. Now I have an idea of what I need to do. Boom, I'm about to put my plan into action. I'm about to do. Sometimes people take a step and say, now I did it. Now let me reevaluate and see, could I have done this differently? How did I feel about this? What could I learn from this? Sometimes people don't do the review part. I notice in a lot of the work that we do, folks are not doing a lot of the reflection, the review, but it's such an integral part of the work, because we need to take a step back and look back and learn from the plans, from the doing. So that's a part of when we talk about problem solving, we use the plan, do, and review. And then when we also talk about taking initiative, because these are the elements, when we think about cognitive development, we're really focused on a lot of the doing. Initiative is all about taking action. With initiative, we're taking action, we're thinking about how can we sustain motivation. Even when we're doing, we're thinking about how can I persevere through the challenge. So we're going to explore some of these today. And also I want you to keep in mind, we talked about those different parts of the brain where where all of these things will come from. Because when we think about sustaining motivation and persevering through challenges, if you think about your thinking brain, your feeling brain, or your survival brain, where do you think the motivation and your ability to persevere through challenge, where do you think those come from? What parts of the brain do you think those come from? Your thinking brain, your feeling brain, or your survival brain? Go ahead and type into the chat. Sustaining motivation and persevering through challenges, which parts of our brain are we tapping into? Thinking, feeling, or surviving? Some people says, yep, I feel like I'm my thinking brain. Here's the thing. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, right? I think different people might tap into different parts of their brain for this and for different reasons, right? Because sustaining motivation, you got to think about it. You got to think about like, all right, what do I want? Let me really use my brain and think about, why am I doing this? And when we think about persevering through challenges, sometimes that could be the result of a survival instinct. It's just like, Chad, let me keep going because I know what the bottom of the barrel look like and I'm just trying to survive. Let me keep going. I need to survive. Right? So we could be tapping into all parts of our brain during this. So you could be tapping into your thinking brain. You could be tapping into your feeling brain. You could be tapping into your survival brain when we're talking about doing. All right, so, and this is really just kind of the framework for when we talk about plan, do, and review. I'm going to take myself away again so you can see this. This is really just the framework for how do we bring in problem solving and initiative into this whole plan, do, and review. So when we're problem solving, we're doing a lot of planning, a lot of doing, a lot of reviewing. When we're talking about just really wanting ourselves or our young people to take action, we're doing. We are doing, and we know in our doing, in order to persevere through the challenge, we need to have a growth mindset and we need to identify some intrinsic motivation. So this is thinking about your why. Why am I doing this? And a lot of the times I think we need to help our young people connect to their why. Help them have a growth mindset by saying, okay, why are you doing this? This ain't for me. I tell people all the time, this stuff it's not for me. If you're doing anything because you thought I wanted you to do it, that's the wrong reason to do it. And it will never sustain success because you don't have the intrinsic motivation. You don't have, that ability to persevere through the challenge connected to it. You have to connect your own why. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. I'm gonna put some scenarios up. And we're gonna go through a scenario. You all should have received your participant workbook. So we're gonna pull that out. in your participant workbook, we're going to go through some scenarios on page 6. All right, please don't pay attention to the highlights there, but you're going to go through some scenarios on page 6. So what I want you to do, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes because I want you all to do scenario 1 and scenario 2 in your breakout rooms. And what you're going to do, you all are going to look through this, you're going to read through this, and you're going to identify which steps are the problem-solving steps, which steps are the initiative steps. And you're going to label them out. And you all can actually do that right on your screen. No, yeah. Is it the little markup tool? Yeah. So I always do this. It's not the markup tool. No, it is the mark. Oh, here it is up here. Okay. If you click the little pin up here, if you open this up, then you can create text boxes. And you can type, whatever in the text. It's not working for me here today. Anyways, you should be able to write on yours, right in the text box, which one is A. Oh, there it is. Here it is. All right. Which one is A? You'd be like, oh, I think this is A right here. That's describing the problem. And this, I don't know the right answers here right now because I'm just typing away. But you're going to identify which of these steps describe the problem, which explore the strategies, which are the reflection, look back and learn, which are the taking action part, which steps are the sustaining motivation, which steps are the persevering through challenge. I'm going to give you 10 minutes in your breakout sessions because I want you to do scenario 1 and scenario 2. And I want you all to have some healthy discussion around why are you identifying each step as either a problem-solving step or an initiative step. And then we're going to come back together and we're going to do a quick debrief. This should also share to your screen in your breakout rooms, just in case you don't have your digital workbook pulled up in front of you. All right, give me a thumbs up if you are clear on what we are about to do. Perfect. I see some thumbs up. Okay. So I'm only going to put you all
I
in.
logged on a little bit late. I just want to make sure, is the workbook in the email?
It should be. Antonio, is the workbook in the email? I didn't even see.
Yes, it's under materials. If you scroll, it'll give you it'll say materials and then it goes to the Zoom link.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
You're welcome.
All right, and thank you for that question. Someone else might have been wondering the same thing. Okay, so I have you all in 2 breakout rooms. Each room, you all are going to do both scenario 1 and scenario 2. You'll have about 10 minutes. I want you all to do some discussion, identify which steps are which, and then we'll come back and we'll debrief it out together. All right, rooms are open.
Yeah, I feel like she's probably
Hey, I see we had someone just join. I just wanted to say hello and welcome. They are in breakout rooms right now and will be returning back in about a minute and a half. Just an FYI.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, so we had two groups. I'm gonna have everyone who was in room 1. I want you to share with us what you all came up with for scenario 1, and then those of you who were in room 2, I want you all to share with us what you all came up for scenario 2. And let's see if anybody got anything different. Okay, so let's start with scenario 1, group 1. We had Dahlia, Devin, Alicia, Kenya, and Mariah. All right, so I will let you all take it away. Go ahead and I'm going to have you all read what scenario 1 was, and then just let us know for each box, which letter, like which step did you write? Go right ahead.
So for the first one, we put B. Jorge considers several ideas about how to gradually increase the number of hot dogs he can eat in one setting and picks one. We put explore strategies for that.
Okay, you can keep, I'm having you do the whole thing. You all can go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, you want me to do all of them? Okay, so we picked D for number 2. You want me to read through all of them?
Yes.
Okay, so Jorge makes his first attempt at stuffing himself with hot dogs, and D was takes action and act on plan. Number 3 was Jorge reminds himself that the prize hot dog eater at the county fair wins $1,000. He writes down the motivational sayings on his refrigerator. We put D for that. Now we put, D, wait a minute. We put E for that one. Yeah, sustains motivation. And then for the 4th one, Jorge reviews his progress and compares which eating method helped him to eat more hot dogs. We put C for that, looks back and learn. And the next one was Jorge gets so tired of eating hot dogs, and friends mock his goal. He wants to give up on his goal of winning the hot dog eating contest, but he sticks to the plan. We put F for that for preserve through challenges. And then the last one we kind of went back and forth on. After reading blogs of food eating contests, Jorge describes that he does not currently have the skill or stomach capacity to compete in the hot dog eating contest. And we put A for that, describe the problem. But we weren't really quite sure if that's the one that fit, but that was the only one left.
So y'all did process of elimination. Okay, so walk me through them again. And you can just say the letters. The first one you all did was B.
Yes, B, D, E, C, F, A.
Okay. Thank you, group one. I just want to pause right here and see room two. Did your group get anything different?
No, we got the same things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. So that is absolutely correct. You all did that. Absolutely correct. Jorge considered several ideas. Yep, that was Jorge describing the problem. Jorge making his first attempt. That was just him taking the action, reminding himself of why he was doing that. That was his motivation. He was sustaining his motivation there. Reviewing his progress was the reflection of him looking back to learn, getting tired. He said, I'm gonna keep doing this though. Persevere through the challenge. And then the last one was him identifying and describing the problem. Awesome. So I would be curious to know what kind of conversation you all had around identifying, which steps were which.
We felt like it was pretty intuitive for most of them until we got to the last box that says after reading blogs on food eating contests, he discovered he doesn't have the skill or stomach capacity. And we agreed that that does sound like a problem, because if his goal is to be the champion hot dog eater, but he doesn't have the skill or stomach capacity to do so, it is a problem. But it doesn't also quite fit, because that's really advanced. Like, I want to be like, good job, Jorge, for knowing your limitations and like paying attention to your body. So it's described problem doesn't seem to really encompass all that's going on in that, which is him being kind of humble and being like, you know what, this isn't for me right now.
Okay.
So we kind of went back and forth with C, like, could it be A and C? Like, who kind of maybe looked over some stuff and learned like, oh no, this ain't for me. You know what I mean? That's where we went back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I could totally see how that can come off as a reflection. Like, okay, after doing this and thinking back, maybe I decided this really isn't for me. So no, I totally understand. And when I've done this before with other groups, people have not gotten all of these right. There have been lots of groups that have gotten these very wrong, but quite often people do think that that last one is the look back and learn. So that is common, because I could see, especially because it's the last one. So you're going through all of these and you're just like, okay, well, he did all of this and now he's thinking maybe this isn't for him. So that does come off a little reflective.
Honestly, it also doesn't really make sense, because if he's just reading blogs about it, how does he know he doesn't have the skill or stomach capacity? He's not going to like measure his stomach capacity after reading a blog, right? He would only know it after trying. So it's sort of like a little confusing.
I imagine that maybe Jorge sat down, as a lot of our young people do, and YouTube some things and, and look at it and be like, oh, I can't do it like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. So I feel like maybe that was their thinking and saying, and therein lies the problem. There's Jorge's problem. He went to YouTube and saw how they did it and discovered he doesn't know how to do it like that.
I am not trying to watch a YouTube video on that.
You'll be amazed at what these kids watch YouTube videos on. But I've seen hot dog eating contests, And if you watch one video, I know myself, I would be like, yeah, no, that's not my, that is not my ministry. And I am not interested in doing it. But God bless Jorge for saying, I want to be a champion hot dog eater at the Super Eater contest next year. But awesome. Great job, Team One, for doing all of those and for being able to identify. You all hit the nail right on the head. Thank you for that. All right, we're moving on to scenario 2. In Team 2, we had Dina, Dr. Georgia, Michaela, sorry. We had all of them in our room 2. So go ahead and let me know what you all came up with.
Okay, so we not gonna lie, kind of struggled with this one. But we kind of ran out of time when discussing it. But I think so starting from upper left, we did A, F, B, and then second row is D, E, C.
All right, so for Latanya wonders whether the reunion will be worth the effort, but reminding herself of her friends, and she already reminds herself of the friends she's already enjoyed getting in touch with. All right, and that one you identified as which one again?
The describing the problem.
Okay, describe the problem. Okay. And then the middle one, the only venue available for the reunion costs twice what she budgeted for. You all identified that as which one?
Preserve through challenge.
All right, go and persevere through the challenge. And then Latanya uses what she found out about options for hosting a reunion party to backwards plan the event. Which one did you identify that as?
As exploring strategies.
Okay. And then, okay, so you all, now we're at Latanya starts the process by contacting Zombie Club. Which one was that?
Take action, act on plan.
Okay, and then the middle one, reviewing the RSVPs.
Sustaining motivation.
Okay, and then the last one.
Look back and learn.
Okay, awesome. So you all got some of them right, some of them not right. So the first box, Latanya wonders the reunion will be worth the effort, but reminds herself of the friends she's already enjoyed getting in touch with. That one is actually sustaining motivation. The middle one, when looking at the venue and what she budgeted for, that is absolutely right. That was persevere through the challenge. Latanya uses what she found out about options. That one was, explore the strategies. Latanya starts the process by contacting the Zombie Club. That one is take action. And the middle one is, that one is the look back and learn. Because that's her reviewing how many she's gotten thus far. And then Latanya writes out what she wants for the reunion and what she already knows and doesn't know about planning a reunion. That one is describing the problem. So that one's A. So some of them you all got right. Some of them you all kind of got switched around. But let me know, what was some of the discussion you all had?
Well, sort of. I think it took us a while to get there to the scenario 2. And then 2, I don't think we really got to finalize everything because it took us a while to get there. But these 2 ladies that was on the call with me, they were awesome in trying to figure this out. I just stopped driving, so my apologies for that. But it was really some good discussion. I know we really got to talk a lot about the first scenario. So I don't know. I think we want another stab at this because I think we really do understand it. Just a little more time with it.
No, I love it. And here's the thing. I love that you said, hey, we really was having a lot of discussion around this, because that's really what I want to happen. I really don't care what you put down, but I want to make sure that we're having really great discussion and thinking about, like, is this you know what I'm saying? Like, what step is this? Is this a describe the problem, or Is this where we are taking action? Is this a reflection? Because when we look at these portions of like a problem solving and initiative, the reason why we're having the discussion is so that we can understand if we are in a time where I have to be like, okay, this is where a problem is being described. What I would do and support someone to do in describing the problem, my support is going to look different when they're taking action or when they're looking to sustain motivation, right? Like my responses are going to look different depending on which area this person is in. So even when we think about Jorge and we think about us as supporters, if this were someone in our program and we're like, okay, Jorge has identified a problem. Jorge knows he does not, he's not a champion hot dog eater yet, but he wants to get there. He came back and said, man, I watched all these YouTube videos. I can't do it right now. How you're going to support Jorge through that and help him is going to look very different than when Jorge starts reviewing his progress and comparing which methods have, helped him. So that's really basically why we're doing this, so that we can start figuring out what my support can look like for each level when we think about planning, doing, and reviewing. And a lot of the time, our young people need more support, more grace, more of our patience when we need them to sustain motivation and persevere through a challenge. When I'm trying to help our young people sustain motivation, that's probably not the time to be like, you know what, you're all right, you're gonna be all right. Just keep going. You're all right. No, like that's that part where we really have to help them identify their own why. Right? That's the part where it's just like, let me help you have a growth mindset. Me just telling you, you know what, you got this, and sending you on your way is probably not going to be the most helpful. Think about yourself. When you are in a moment where you need some, motivation, you're trying to sustain your own motivation, or you're trying to persevere through your own challenge, somebody just simply be like, oh, you okay? Do you find that helpful? Because I can tell you right now, I definitely do not find that helpful. I cannot stand if I have expressed an issue to someone and they just be like, girl, you got this. Well, you telling me I got this that's not helping me. That's actually not what I need right now. So I love that we're having this discussion, and we're going to keep exploring what that might need to look like, or what that can look like in us. Now, we're going to pause here because, as promised, I'm going to stop share. I want to honor you with a break. So we are going to take a 10-minute break. It is 10:38 right now. We're going to come back at 10:48. Go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to get back into the central, more of our central ideas. All right, so I'm just going to type here, 10-minute break. See you at 10:48. And then we're going to rock and roll into the next half of our training. All right, see you in 10 minutes. All right, hello everyone. It is 10:48, so we are back. We have about less than 45 more minutes to go. Like I said, today we're going to end it around 11:30. So we are going to dive a little bit more into this cognitive development. Do me a favor, just to let me know you are back and ready to go. Go ahead and hit me with a thumbs up emoji and let me know you're here, you're back, you're ready. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, perfect. I see some coming back. Okay, so now we've talked about cognitive development. We've talked about the different areas of the brain, right? And when they develop. Now I want to spend a little time talking about stress and fear. We kind of touched on this earlier, but let's really think about it. The impact of stress and fear and trauma on the brain. Here in our neocortex portion of the brain, stress and fear can impact the brain by reducing its function. Now, again, remember fight, flight, or freeze. When you are in some bit of a pickle or something's going on, is your brain, like, you know what I'm saying, is your brain always firing off on all cylinders? Or sometimes are you like, wait, I can't think, like, I don't know. Because I know me, when I am in a high stress situation, if you're asking me rapid fire questions, like my brain is like, I don't know. I can't even think my way through things. I am just kind of stuck in, I'm stuck in my instinctual self. I'm stuck in like, oh my goodness, I just need to survive this moment right here. So when we think about stress, whatever people might consider to be stressful, their brain, their thinking brain is not thinking at full capacity. The two areas of their brain that are really into high function is that emotional brain and our instinctual brain. I'd love to hear anyone give some insight or share a story, or, even just share your thoughts about how you may have seen the impact of stress on the youth in your program. Any type of stress, like what does that look like to the youth in your program when they're stressed out?
I've noticed that a lot of our middle and high school kids, when we do our check-in, which we do kind of the opposite of what we did this morning with you, we say 1 is feeling awesome and 5 is feeling really not awesome. But it's the same idea of using numbers to kind of share where you're at. So we've seen a lot of high numbers, 4s and 5s, indicating kind of a lot of stress or anxiety or sadness or anger. But one interesting thing I've noticed is that often when the kids share that, they're saying it with like a big smile on their face. So we'll have these middle school kids be like, I'm a 4, which basically means like, I am not doing well, but they'll like smile and laugh. So that's kind of interesting. I think part of it has to do with them that we kind of share in a big group, and it can probably make people feel uncomfortable. But I know it's just an interesting kind of dynamic where they're saying basically, I'm not doing well, and they're saying it with a smile and a laugh. So that's just something I've noticed.
No, thank you for that, Mariah. And when we did our emotion coaching and our emotional awareness foundation earlier, this was, a few months ago, we talked about the physical body, like what the physical body can look like, even when people are experiencing high emotions, like high sadness. People can be smiling on the outside and still be super, super sad. And it's really people, a lot of the times, like you said, we're just trying to make other people feel comfortable on the outside. So it's just like, I'm going to smile because that probably makes you feel good. But on the inside, I'm completely falling apart. It's our mask. We do a lot of masking, and our young people do a lot of masking. So thank you for highlighting that, to say they can be smiling and laughing and looking like they're having a grand old time. But if I actually take the time to ask them, how are they doing? They might be honest with me and say that they're not doing the best. So thank you for that. A lot of the times our young people stress or sadness or fear, it can look like laughter. It can look like smiles. But we also know like they might behave a little differently. Listen, when my son is super, super sleepy, it looks very silly. He gets extremely silly. He wants to play all the time. And that is my first indicator. You are exhausted. But no one would know. They're just like, oh, he has so much energy. No, he is running on fumes. He's tired. Right. So what it looks like on the outside can be different than what's going on the inside. Thank you. Thank you for that. Mariah says, same with my little one. Yes, yes. Anyone else want to share what you observe in your young people or maybe what you ask them, what you know about what stress looks like on them. And I mean, let's use the pandemic for example.
With stress, I think the question is like, what's like kind of the response to stress, or how do they behave in the stress condition? Is that what you're asking?
Or even what does it look like physically? What does it look like?
Yeah, it kind of looks like disengaged, may not even be paying attention. No eye contact, kind of looking away or looking at other things, and wanting to avoid the stressful trigger, whatever that may have been. And other times it can be, heavy breathing when it comes to being in a stress state as well, at least from what I've experienced.
Thank you for that, Antonio. Disengaged, right? Not really want to participate. That is definitely, I've seen that in programming as well. Sometimes, our young people are just like, they're all in it, but when they have a lot going on, they come to programming and they're just like, don't ask me no questions. Don't look at me. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to participate. None of it. Dina typed into the chat, relating back to what Mariah said, with asking young people, it can be saying, oh, nothing, everything is fine, when we do try and ask what's going on, right? And it's not even just young people. We as grownups do that all the time. Like you're saying, Dina, we do that all the time when you're just like, oh, hey, how's everything going? Like, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. I'm doing really well. No, everything is good. When it's just like, no, everything is not good. You need a hug, right? You are stressed out. You need some time off of work. You need a vacation. You need some help. So that masking, again, we're talking about this idea of masking. And even at the beginning, right? When I posed the question, hey, tell me how you feeling today. And then I went back and said, no, like, tell me how you really feeling today. Like, let's take off our mask and let's share, how are you really, really feeling today? Because we know stress and fear can impact our ability to do things. Sometimes stress and fear impacts our physical ability to move. Again, when we go back to the instinctual part of our brain, right? You might get into freeze because you might be thinking like, okay, I just need to stand here. I just need to stand here for a minute. I know my fight or flight or freeze instinct, like I've always said when I go out into the woods, y'all, if I ever saw a bear, and because I be watching these movies, and people be in the woods and going on hikes, and then all of a sudden it's like a bear comes out of nowhere. I know some people be like, oh, snap, I'm gone. Like, I think my for real, fight or flight or freeze instinct, I'm literally just gonna stand there because I don't think my body would even know to like, sis, you might want to move. You might want to go on that bear somewhere. I think I would just be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, because I've been in situations where there were stressful situations and my neocortex, right? My thinking brain wasn't working. Like, my thinking brain was not firing off on all cylinders. So my reptilian brain kicked in and I just stood there and it's just like, I can't even speak. I'm stuttering, right? So that sometimes, right, when we're under a lot of stress, when we're under a lot of fear, it's just like, I don't even know. And if someone is under a lot of stress and a lot of fear and they are in full like survival mode right now and they're frozen, what do you think is going to happen, or how do you think it might impact them if I keep firing off a billion questions? If they are in freeze mode because, that's just their instinct, their survival mode, if I keep asking them, answer this question, now answer this question, and I kind of keep interrogating them, how do you think they're going to respond? Yep, Antonio said shutdown or a possible explosion. Deer in headlight, Siobhan. Yeah, supposedly based on oh wow. So advertising for a movie called Cocaine Bear. Wow. Yeah, like I would totally be a deer in the headlights in any situation. And I know for me, and I want you to think about how you agree. I mean, you know, how you would respond to this as well. If you're in freeze mode, right? If you're just like, I can't move, and someone keeps being like, but Antonio, did you hear me? Did you hear what I told you to do? Antonio, get up and move. And it's, you know, and if they just keep coming at you, you're right, Antonio. That's when we see our, you know, people start to explode. They just like, yo, like, I don't listen, get away from me, right? They become explosive, and that goes back to, you know, it's instinctual. It's like, I need to just survive right now. So my body's gonna do whatever my body's gonna do, because right now I'm just trying to function as minimally as possible. All right. Or even if, you know, maybe they're not even in shutdown mode. Maybe they are in, you know, where they need to flee. Maybe they need to get out of the space, and we're forcing them to stay in the space. I know when I used to go in program and, you know, some kids would storm out, or, you know, they would just need to leave the space. Teachers would be like, get back in here, sit down. You gonna stay. And it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, when they start flipping over desks, it's like they warned you, they need to be in a different space right now. So think about that. Sometimes our young people, they need to get out. They need to be like, let me take a step back. Let me step away. And it's like when we force them under immense stress or pressure, or if they're, you know, fearful, if we're forcing them to be in a situation that right now they just need to take a break from, again, we can see the explosive behavior. So we know stress and fear absolutely impacts the brain. And that's just even in the moment. When you think about continued stress, continued fear, continued trauma, I always like to tell people, long-term, you know, exposure to trauma, it impacts the brain, because you see all of these little squiggly lines. That's how the brain communicates. That's a part of your system. Your brain is sending signals to different parts of the brain. All of these little lines and squiggly lines is like your brain is communicating. It's sending signals to, you know, your prefrontal cortex. It's sending signals to your limbic system. It's sending signals to your reptilian brain. It's sending all of these signals, but a long-term impact of trauma can be a smoother brain. So if you have a smoother brain, that means there's a delay. Your brain is literally not firing off correctly. So our young people who have had a lot of exposure to trauma, or even ourselves, when we've had a lot of exposure to trauma, like long-term, we might be missing some signals, or it might take a little bit longer. So yeah, I might need you to repeat stuff over and over again. I might need you to show me in a different way. I might need you to use different language. I think it was Dina who said it earlier, to say, I don't think it's our young people can't understand. I think it's just that we have to explain it to them in a way that makes sense for where they're at. I'm the same way. I will tell people all the time, I have learned to identify my trauma triggers. And that's just really honestly thanks to some years of therapy. And in me learning my trauma triggers, I am now at a place where I can say, oh, okay, hey, the way that you just worded that to me was very triggering. In order for me to be able to kind of stay in this conversation and participate fully in it, I'm going to ask, can you reframe that? That is me being very grown after having a whole bunch of therapy, having that skill set. Y'all, 16-year-olds might not have that. I don't think, right? Our 15-year-olds may not have the ability to identify their triggers and say, hey, the way in which you have shared that with me is not really landing. Can you share it a different way? Like, no. We are watching out for their body language. We're watching, you know, we're listening to their words in a different way, but we need to kind of take into consideration what's the best way that they receive information. What's the best way they process information? What's their internal processing system like? Antonio says that in itself is a process. Absolutely. Are you someone who processes information immediately? Are you someone who has to take a little bit longer to process information? That's, I think, why I love the reflection process. When we talk about plan, doing, and reviewing, having the ability to go back and review something and say, okay, did I answer that correctly? Did I handle that correctly? Or even how did that feel? That's helping our internal processing system make sense of the information a little bit more. And sometimes when we're in high stress situations, we're not able to process things, the way that we normally would. So that's just, keep that in the back of your mind, and really think about how this relates to you. How do you process information when you're in a high stress situation, right? So here are some factors that can activate stress and fear. And we know this: conflicts at home, school, or even in your neighborhood. We also call these, I do another training called Nonviolent Crisis Intervention. And in that training, we call these things precipitating factors. When you have a lot going on in your life, it's just like, I have had a full day before I even showed up to work today. I had to have a full day, right? Like, I was just a whole bunch going on, and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. That can activate stress, that can activate fear. Now, I don't commute into the office anymore, but when I did have to commute into the office, the days it would take me 2 hours to get to work. Do y'all think I was showing up with a smile on my face by the time I got to work? Because I can tell you I wasn't. I was not showing up like, okay, good morning, everyone. I know I would show up and be like, oh, it took me 2 hours to get here. Then I couldn't find any parking. Then the parking I did find, I had to pay $20 to park my car, not even for the full day, because I got to go back out in 3 hours to go to a school, right? It's all of these other things. I'm activated. Think about food insecurity. Activate stress. It can activate fear. Racism. Microaggressions in the workplace is a real thing. Microaggressions in your program, a real thing. Bias, right? Preconceived doubts about your ability, that can activate stress and fear. Poverty, all of those things. Precipitating factors. And I always think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. On the bottom level, according to Maslow's hierarchy, it says, hey, if your basic needs are not being met, nothing else matters to you. And that is so true. I have lived and breathed by that for years, all of my adult life, because it is so true. I always tell people, if you get a young person in your program and they are starving, they are hungry, do you think they care about this activity you're doing? They don't. Or if they're too sleepy. Y'all, I have been at work before in the office, and I legitimately have been like, oh my God, I need to close my eyes. Like, I can't do any work because I am so sleepy right now. I've been in meetings, I have been in trainings where I have been like, yo, I need to go and I need to close my eyes for like 10 minutes for real, because I can't focus on anything else. Even when we think about bias, I don't go to some places because of like, I already know there are, there's some biases existing. And it's like, oh, I'm not gonna go in there. I'm not even gonna set myself up. Think about how some students might feel when they know teachers are talking about them, because that creates bias. Oh, you got Darius in your class this year? Child. Oh, I had Darius last year. Girl, good luck. You ain't even met Darius, right? But now all of a sudden, someone has planted a seed that Darius is a handful. So as soon as you see Darius, you probably like, oh, hey, Darius. right? Okay, here come Darius. You don't even know Darius. You've not even interacted with Darius, but now there's a bias there. Go ahead, Kenya.
Oh God, I would start out with a cough. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I welcome the Dariuses because it gives me the opportunity to explore more to see why I would just say critical thinking to see what others didn't do or what others did do that didn't work for me to have a different approach with Darius, because when you're working with young people, it's same things, different people, different persons, and Darius could be acting out for various reasons. And if no one has shown concern or care, then you're gonna keep getting the same person.
Yes, thank you, Kenya. And I love that how you said, like, this is an opportunity for me to see what need hasn't been met for this child, for this young person, right? And maybe where people are missing out, this is an opportunity for me to step in and provide some support, you know, and get a different result. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kenya. And that is the belief that we should have, right? We should have that belief that, like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to step in and provide some additional support, instead of the belief that Lord Darius about to act up in my classroom too. Miss Keisha done said, you know, he was a handful last year. He probably gonna be a handful this year. And sometimes we don't think they know. Our young people know when they are the topic of discussion. Our young people know when, you know, word has been spread. They know that. It gets back to them.
Yes, and it also encourage them to continue with the same amount of behavior to, you know, exemplify that, because they know that's what is expected.
Why not? Yep. It's like, well, why not? You're gonna treat me as if anyways. You're gonna treat me like I did something wrong anyway. So I might as well do it and do it until I don't feel like doing it no more. Absolutely. They definitely play into that behavior.
I know also that I teach in our program, I know that we talk to the kids about taking accountability. So you know, those type of labels aren't just handed out. Those type of labels are sometimes given because of the choices and things that we make. And yes, those labels do stick with us. I tell them all the time, like, those are labels that stick with us. Like, some of us may have labels and stuff from high school that people still see us and recognize us by. So it's not about us living up to the label, but trying to just proving them wrong and just doing what we're supposed to do and changing the narrative, because they already have in their brain that we've already these type of people, but it's your job to show them that that's not who you are, that's who you were. So just continuing to grow, but taking accountability for the wrong actions that you have chosen to do.
Oh, yes, I am a full fan of responsibility and accountability. But here is where I challenge staff. When we talk about responsibility and accountability, I challenge staff to say, did you teach a skill for taking responsibility and accountability first? Because sometimes we assume, oh, you should know, right? But we have to remember to teach a skill. And so I love that you said, hey, I want to teach you how to change the narrative. I want to teach you a skill for being able to choose a different decision instead of just taking what someone has given you, right? You can take the narrative back. You can control the narrative because you can choose differently. So I am really big on us taking the time to teach our young people skills so that, hey, you, because I always tell people, it's up to you. It's always your choice, but I want to teach you some skills so that you can have a bigger toolbox to choose from.
Definitely agree.
Love it. Thank you all so much for this, because of course we can have a 3-hour conversation on fear stressors and activators in our program and what that looks like, right? Because I know we have all encountered it. But the point of this is really just to highlight that all of these factors can activate stress. It can activate fear. So when fear and stress is activated, we know that these different portions of the brain are responding differently, which means my approach might need to be a little bit differently as well. Here are some key ideas when we think about cognitive development, right? So cognitive development is basically learning how to learn, learning how to problem solve. And remember, we talked about that prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain. The front part of the brain shuts down under the toxic stress. We talked about that. Like it doesn't function. So if you are in a high stress situation, me throwing all the questions at you, like, you're not going to answer them. You're going to answer them differently, probably. You're going to behave differently because you're under high stress. The front part of your brain, it's acting differently. It's shutting down. And then also, we know everybody's learning is different. So we always have to think about leaning on their strengths, thinking about their experiences, tapping into the best way that they learn, the best way that they process information, the best way they receive information, thinking about their circumstances. Also keeping in mind the impact of trauma, even on their cognitive development. Like, okay, there could be some cognitive delays here that maybe we don't know of, maybe parents haven't been forthcoming with, but there could be some other things at play here, and I want to make space for that. I want to honor that, and just keep that in mind as well. At the beginning, we had the question of like a negative learning experience. Name something that wasn't a really great learning experience from you, and let's talk about the impact of that. That goes to deal with your own experiences. Your experiences are going to impact how you perceive things in the future. Same way with our young people. It impacts how we learn. So what I want us to do, this last activity before we close it out, I want you to think about your own learner profile. And we're going to create your own learner profile, because this is something you can also do with your young people and help them create their own learner profile. I am all about empowerment. I feel like the more we know ourselves, the better it is to be able to communicate to people like, this is the best way that I learn. Here are my challenges. I know this, right? So this is how you can support me. So I want you to think about your strengths, your needs, things that interest you, and maybe some of your own, I'm going to take myself away, some constraints. So your strengths, and there's a portion in the workbook, I'm going to pull it up. And I want you to think about it. So think about your strengths. What are you, even let's relate it to cognitive development. We've talked about cognitive development. So which aspects of cognitive development are you strong in? Like, what are you really good at when we think about cognitive development? So how do you self-regulate? How do you persevere? Like, are you good at being like, hey, I know how to get through some hard things. I know how to, make really great connections to things. I know how to have a really great growth mindset. And I know how to help my young people have a great growth mindset. So just think about which aspects of cognitive development are you really strong in? I'm going to share this. Actually, no, I'll just keep this up. So go ahead and type into the chat for me the area of cognitive development, or the aspect of cognitive development you're strong in. Kenya says less stress. Yes. Mariah says kudos. Yep. Love it. Love it.
in my Kevin Hart voice, see what had happened was, or if I could just go to work and not have to have a billion things to worry about, then I would be able to function cognitively.
And that's real though, Kenya, right? To say like, it's hard for me to do my job when I got so much,
Oh gosh.
so much going on. Or when I walk in the door and I'm coming to work to do one thing, you done hit me with 15 other things I gotta do. So decreasing the stress, I'm not mad at that. And maybe that would be identified as a need, right? What tools or resources, like basically, what do you need to be able to thrive cognitively? Less stress. I need people to do their job. That's me. I know that I would say that. Like, I need everybody to do their job, do what they're great at, right? So think about, when it comes to cognitive development, and your ability to be able to thrive cognitively, so that is being a great learner. What do you need? I want you to think about that. And I want you all to like jot some things down. If you are in your workbook, this is on page 8 in your workbook. And I'm going to share it in a second. And then interest. What types of work or ways of learning or areas of research really motivate you? And then think about some of the barriers for optimal cognitive performance and success. I know one of my constraints, one of my barriers, like my trauma triggers. In this work that I do, I've had to really try to build some skill and some resources around, what to do when I'm triggered. I almost lost my job one time because I got triggered by a young kid. And this was years and years and years ago, but that was an indicator for me that like, okay, sis, well, you're gonna have to work on this if you want to stay working in this field. Oh, I see Alicia says it's good to have a great leader and supervisor. Ooh, honey, say that there. Say that again. Having a great leader. Yes. One of the last jobs I worked, I did not have a great leader. And I felt like that impacted my ability to do my job well. Because my leader didn't have a vision. So it was like, well, if you don't have a vision, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So I love that one. Yes. So I would encourage you all to do your own learner profile. And then, when you go with your young people, consider working with them to create a learner profile for them as well, having them create their own learner profile so that you can better understand them and they can better understand themselves. Like, hey, I'm cognitively, like when I think about the way I learn, this is the best way I learn. I'm a visual learner, right? Or I love to do things. I love to be able to manipulate things. So I always tell people, for me, one of my strengths as a learner, I love to just do it. I'm definitely more so in like the doing. Now, maybe some needs or resource when I think about learning, sometimes I need to take a little bit more time to work on the planning, right? Sometimes I need to plan some things out and have the resources to be able to do that and the time to be able to plan things out. Well, what really interests me about this is I love learning more about the ways in which people learn. I love learning more about, people's love language. I love learning about people's love language at work. I love learning about people's love language, in our programs, our young people. I love learning about that. And then constraints, one can say, hey, what's challenging is when I don't have a great supervisor. So I love that one. All right. Oh, and then here's just a quick note. All these things come into play when you're doing your learner profile, your background, your experiences, your physical conditions, like all of those things come into play because we always want to make space to say everybody learns differently. Everyone is going to receive this differently. Everyone is going to have a different answer. What works for me may not work for you, and that's okay. And we just want to be able to honor that. All right, so we're gonna, because I'm looking at the time and I want to honor your time as well. We are going to do a closing reflection and we're going to end it out. One of the things I want to have you all think about or even answer in our closing reflection, name one way you are going to use this information in your programming. I'm typing into the chat.
You want me to type it into the chat?
No, you can talk it. I'm just typing so that for our visual people, they will have something to see. Go right ahead.
Well, this is really important for me in the work that I do because I'm dealing with the crisis of the of youth gun violence right now. So I have to stay and drill, and it just really hit everything. This whole session hit everything, hit into the work that I'm doing. I'm sorry, because I have to dig into their cognitive, into their brain, and instill. First of all, have patience, which go back to what we were saying earlier. And because one thing, the two of the things that I'm drilling is accountability and responsibility. And I know that their brains are not developed. So I have to keep planting that seed over and over and over again and be patient even when mistakes is made. And one of the components is, education, and then I'm having the mentoring, and all of that just all plays into one. I'm sorry, my mind is just really going before me at the moment, but just really instill and keep planting that seed until it gets, because we don't want to have the city, everybody, the community. We can't continue to have deaths and seeing our young people and accepting it, because I refuse to accept it as a new reality, new normal, that our youth are going to prison. Is it saving lives? Yes. Nevertheless, that shouldn't be an option because our youth are our future. All of us on here are aging gracefully. Nevertheless, if this is what we got to look forward to our future, then we're in trouble. We're in trouble, specifically race-wise in the African American community, because we need more leaders in that, and who can relate and can stand up for us as not only as a race, but an ethnicity and a culture. So it's important because they have a lot of gifts, but don't know how to utilize them. And what Cycle Breakers is doing, and I'm dedicated into breaking that curse, breaking it, looking into the generational cycle and breaking that cycle and see what we can do differently together. And all of it is going to take everything that we just went over cognitively with the brain, with the feelings, all of it. It was all of this was for me today.
Oh,
so
okay,
thank you.
No, thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining. And you mentioned something that was really right in line with what we're talking about. I know you don't feel well, and you were just like, oh, wait, like my brain, hold on, like I apologize, my brain is not functioning, right? And that's just a real life example. Even when we're not feeling well, we're just like, we're not firing off. It's like, I'm trying to stay present. And so, just thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here, Kenya. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the work that you do with our young people. It's so important. I'm so glad that you feel like this was for you today. Mariah typed into the chat, incorporating more opportunities for reviews and reflection for our youth participants. I love it. Yes, Dina says, keeping in mind the different parts of the brain, their function, and how the different levels, the different levels of development may affect why a child may act the way that they do. I love that. Yes. Devin says, my leadership role has benefited from this training. I'm glad. By remembering you have to meet people where they are when trying to explain or help them in all ages. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for allowing me to share this information with you. I love talking about these types of things because I am just a lover of brain development. It has been a game changer for me in the work that I do, because it reminds me that I still need to show some grace, to our young people, because they're still growing and they're still learning. I also see that Antonio typed their SurveyMonkey link into the chat, the evaluation link. So make sure you all click that. Thank you so much, Antonio, for having me. I have been enjoying this. I love it. This has been amazing. So thank you for letting me be here, and I will kick it back over to you.
Awesome. As always, I mean, this one was excellent. I feel like everybody benefited from this in the interaction. Thank you all so much for sharing your lived experiences with the group, because we learned together and we progress together. And so just hearing and all of you all's experiences and feeding back off of each other, this helps us as a whole to get better and to learn more. And so thank you all for that. And yes, I did put the link to our survey in the chat. So please click on that and let us know how you felt. I see some of you all already had, in the chat had some comments. So those would be great on there as well. We do take that serious, and we do report on those responses that you all put on there. So be transparent, let us know how you really feel about those things, so that we can continue to provide these valuable resources for you all for free. So thank you all so much. And so another thing to say is that, our wonderful facilitator, Ms. Siobhan Dodson, has been blessed in this season. And so we will have one more training session with her in January, because she has another opportunity. And so we are super, super, super thankful for her during her time over the last 2 years with us. She put up with us on last year, and she decided to make a crazy decision to come back this year and to facilitate with us again. So, but she is truly a blessing, and truly one of the best facilitators that I have ever experienced, and someone that I've actually learned. And little does she know, I have definitely stolen some techniques from her and my own facilitation. So thank you so much, Siobhan, for everything that you have done. And so I'm looking forward to our last session next month. And so yeah, you have been truly a blessing. And everybody, please, I see you getting some love in the chat and on the emoji. So yeah, that's a testament into how you have been to Louisville. So thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said, we will be respectful of your time, but please fill out the survey. Let us know how things are going. And we look forward to seeing you all next month for the training. And if anything comes up in between then, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we are going to let you all go. Thank you again, Ms. Siobhan. Everybody have a great rest of your day.